Step tube headers, merge collectors. Is it like super exhaust magic power making? Or is it just sort of eh? Well, we're gonna try them out this time on Engine Masters. Step tube headers have been around the racing world for a long time, and the aftermarket has picked up on it, and you can buy them off the shelf. The question is, does it really make power? First, what is a step tube header? Well, it's a header where the primary tube diameter steps from an initial diameter up to a second diameter and then to a third diameter. It's typically 3. Look at the example right here. You've got 2 1/8" primary tubes coming out, and then it goes up to a 2 1/4, and then it goes into a 2 3/8. It's super trick, right? Well, the thing is, we don't really know. There's a lot of theories about why this would work, and when I sit down with Steve Brule and Steve Dulcich, we're gonna go through what those theories are. But the whole point of the episode is to find out if it really trends toward making a difference, especially with an off-the-shelf header. Here's how we're gonna do that. We're gonna take our engine that I'll explain to you in a minute, and we're gonna run it with 4 different sets of headers. First, we're gonna run it with a 2 1/8 tube all the way down. Second, we're gonna run it with a 2 1/4" tube all the way down. And third, the 2 3/8 tube. And finally, we will install the header that mixes them all up into one sort of smorgasbord of header greatness. And so that's how we're gonna find out if that works. But then there's another step. The merge collector is another doohickey that comes from the race world that's now available right off the shelf from the aftermarket. We'll explain this later in the episode and find out if that is gonna help us out or not. Here's the engine that we're gonna be doing all of this with. It is one of our favorites. It is a 598 cubic inch big block Chevy. That much shy of 600 cubic inches, and it's done in a stock deck height block. It's all from Blueprint Engines, or the short block is anyway. It is a 4,600 bore and a 4,500 stroke. That's a lot of cubic inches in a fairly compact package. It's only 10-to-1 compression. It runs on 91 octane. The camshaft in it is a Crane solid roller, 274 degrees of duration at 50 on the intake, 284 on the exhaust. The cylinder heads are straight out of Brodix, and they are a 365cc deal, and they're unique because they are an oval port. They have a matching Brodix intake manifold, which is also perfectly matched to those oval ports in the cylinder heads. We expect this thing to make in excess of 800 horsepower, and it's gonna do it at a fairly low RPM, but it's moving enough air and it's making enough grunt that we're hoping that if these headers make like a small percentage of change, that we'll be able to see it, because a small percentage of a big number like 800 horsepower turns into something measurable and visual on the dyno graph. All right, let me sit down with the Steves, and once again, I'm gonna ask them about the theories of the stepped header. Then we're gonna rip into it, check all those other 3 header sizes, go to the stepped header, and finally go to the merge collector and find out what happens. So I wanted to get your guys' ideas on sort of the major theories that I have read about why stepped headers might work. And the first and biggest one, the one that's like in engineering treatises, you can actually like buy computer programs to sort this out, is that at each step, there is a reflected wave induced, or a rarefaction right there as the gases pass through the step, and that changes the tuned length of that sonic wave that goes back and forth in the exhaust and helps the extraction and the pulling in of the air fuel and all of that.
That's what you call a stare down. Really, I'm not doubting the fact that you may generate something, but I'm not sure how significant or powerful that reflection is.
Yeah, because
I don't know.
It seems like obviously there's a wave when the gases go out the end of an open pipe, but really just in a little step, what would be the amplitude of that wave be, right?
That's the multi-million-dollar question here.
The other interesting one is that theoretically, in an ideal world, you wouldn't have a step header, you would have a big megaphone. It would just progressively get larger and larger and larger. But the argument about the big tapered megaphone is that it affects the reflected wave and amplifies it on the way back, and therefore amplifies it also on the induced wave in order to have a greater effect.
So going back to the first one, we had the question of amplitude, and you're saying that the cone will give you the maximum amplitude, but is it just one reflected wave, which is normally what you would expect up a primary tube?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were on the Monster Mobile, so I think they're cool.
Boom! That's a good idea. I like that. That was a good pull. And then the last one, which I sort of buy into, is that it all started because you couldn't bolt a giant header tube to the flange on the cylinder head.
Yeah.
So you needed to come out this far with a smaller tube before you stepped it up to a bigger tube. Yeah. So that's all sort of the engineering stuff behind this, and clearly there's a truth to all of it. The question is, does it apply to your life, and will you ever figure it out in your under chassis header on your car with your particular cylinder head, camshaft, intake manifold, everything else? And so what we're really trying to do here is see if we can spot a trend of any kind.
Of any kind.
Right. And so we'll do that by starting with which header?
2 1/8.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go. Brule just left to go fire up the 598 big block. What we're gonna do is run the 2 1/8" header, then the 2 1/4, and then the 2 3/8, and then we'll come out and sit down and see the results. Step 2, the 2 1/4" tubes. Yeah.
What is this made out of, lead?
I know, they're heavy. Now we're in the middle of installing the 2 3/8" header. Look how much bigger the hole in the header is than the actual exhaust port. Also, look how thin the metal gets all the way around the header. That's like a leak waiting to happen. That's the downside of big tube construction on this thing. And remember, this is the one that also has the larger collector. It's 4.5" instead of 4". That's a necessary evil. We had to make 2 changes at once because you can't cram that 2 3/8" tube into a 4" collector. From watching the data flash by here on the screen, Dulcich and I had eyebrows raised. There's something strange going on.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to have a look at that, and then we will show you the graphs because I think it's not what we expected. We're trying to find out if stepped headers work. And to do that, we just tested 3 headers as a baseline with the 3 different tube diameters. We tested 2 1/8, 2 1/4, and 2 3/8. And here are the power numbers for all those headers. 819 horsepower at 6,100 RPM, 819.8, and 826.5. The torque's a little bit more different, 758 versus 745.8 versus 747. So on the face of it, these are all kind of the same, but off camera, we looked at all of this stuff because we saw a big surprise. This is the curve with the 2 1/8" header. Watch what happens when we install the 2 1/4. Ooh. Oh. The red lines are the 2 1/4, the black lines are the 2 1/8. If you were to ask us yesterday, or even this morning, which is gonna be the best header on this engine, we would have all told you it's the 2 1/4.
Or even 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, 5 minutes ago. We would have never recommended anybody to run a 2 1/8" header on a 600 cubic inch engine, a 598.
And you know, as we were discussing earlier, when you look at that torque curve, that really is a curve of the volumetric efficiency. So interestingly enough, while this makes more peak torque and more torque in this whole area, way down low where the small header's supposed to be better, the big header's better. So it's all in this wave tuning thing, in my opinion. I mean, it's filling or evacuating the cylinder. It's doing something more efficiently in the cylinder, capturing pressure at different points in the RPM curve with different diameter tubes.
Meaning, This right here has got the larger tube making more torque at the bottom end.
Yes.
Probably down here at 800 RPM, if you could run it at wide open, it might go the other way.
Again.
And if you could run it to 10,000 RPM, it might cross the way because the reflected wave tuning in the header changes.
This, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a matter of flow resistance down there at 3,500 RPM.
Right.
It's something else going on with the way the engine tunes in, which to me, it implies that it's very combination specific. Maybe a different intake manifold or cam or other change in the engine combination can lead to a slightly different result.
You know, we come back to that every time, is it's combination specific, and we've heard that our whole lives, but it really is.
But, you know, there's certain things where we like to say always, and there's never an always. There's always an exception, and that's what this is. Now let's show you what happens when we put the even bigger header on. This is gonna be the 2 3/8. And the 2 3/8 is in the blue lines, and you can see that it once again, oh, wait a minute, no.
No, it picked up torque.
Here's freaky. The 2 3/8 picked up torque. So the blue line here is now the 2 1/4. The red line is the 2 3/8. Just a minute ago, we showed you that the larger tube lost mid-range torque. Then we put a larger tube on it, and it came back a little bit, further showing you that there's just crazy things going on with that reflected wave tuning that you can't guess. And well, from 2 1/8 to 2 1/4, we didn't see a horsepower increase. We did see it with the 2 3/8.
Yeah. So what you're saying is all the three of us combined and our favorite header, 2 1/4, was the worst we tested.
Yes.
I'm just trying to be clear here.
Yes. At least I wasn't alone in it. You guys all agreed.
We were all here.
I was convinced the 2 1/4 was going to be the right one.
Yeah, a lot of times I walk into a test and it's like, oh, I know exactly how this is going to go.
Yeah.
You know, and then it just like kicks me in the giblets every single time.
Right.
I did read one theory I didn't run past you guys, which is the reason you have the smallest tube length right out of the port is to maintain that velocity for low-speed torque. All right, we're going to install step headers, and it's going to be great. What do you think, Steve?
I really couldn't tell.
Don't know.
It seemed good, and then it seemed bad, and then it seemed great, and then it seemed terrible. So somewhere in that range.
We're trying to find out if step headers can be the magic trick for performance. Before we tested, I said we're going to find out if it's the best of both worlds, the worst of both worlds, or of all three worlds, or if it's inconclusive. And I can now tell you it's virtually the worst of all worlds in this particular test. It made 828.8 horsepower, which granted is
pretty
like
good.
2 better than anything else we've tested, but you'll find out you don't care. And the torque on this is 745.8 pound-feet. Now look what happens when we compare this to what? You want to go with the 2 3/8?
Yes.
Yeah, or do you want to go with our best header thus far, which is the 2 1/8?
We better go 2 3/8.
Okay, let's have a look at the 2 3/8. Uh-oh. So the black lines are the step header and the red are the 2 3/8 straight tube header. And you can see the step header is no better anywhere, but actually destroys power at every point below 5,000 RPM. Now we're gonna show you the stepped header versus the 2 1/4. 2 1/4 is in red. So the step header did make more power up top compared with the 2 1/4. But again, the step header did not make the torque. But if you think that's bad, wait till we show you the step header versus the 2 1/8 mind blower. Okie dokie, the black lines are the step header, the red lines are our 2 1/8. You can see the step header, which performed about the same as the 2 3/8 all the way up on the top, is making more horsepower, but wow, did it give up a lot of torque until you get all the way back down here, in which case the step header is better.
I mean, this is really confusing to me, kind of the trends that we're seeing or not seeing. I mean, this might be I don't know, some application in some race car, but God, you just give up so much everywhere. It's just the wrong thing to do.
Well, but I think the answer specifically with the stepped header is there's no science in it at all. Basically, manufacturing determined where they were going to put the steps in, and they're not at all tuned for this application. I think if you wanted to have any hope of working with a stepped header, you would need a dyno test over and over and over and experiment with the links. You could start with one of those computer programs with the flow dynamics and the rarefaction, all that stuff. I think you gotta test it to know.
We know nothing.
Here's the next tidbit of information I have, and this is from a, I will say, incredibly reliable source. Modern pro stock cars with their naturally aspirated 500 cubic inch engines, many of them use step headers. You know what they all use?
What?
Merge collectors.
Yeah, no.
They do. And so the next thing that we're gonna do is pick a header, and I'll show you all about what a merge collector is, but let's decide amongst ourselves which header are we gonna try it on. I mean, we only have it for the 2 bigger headers because we never saw the thing about the 2 1/8 being best.
I know which one I want to see.
Put it on the 2 3/8?
Yes.
You wanna put it on the 2 3/8 because it made the most horsepower?
Yeah,
Sure,
the
I'll go
other
there.
aspect that I want to see is that merge collector going to pick up that torque deficit down in the mid-range and yet still make the same top end? And, like, maybe that would be the best of both worlds.
There's lots of theories about them. There's also a lot of detail about them. So we're gonna go in the cell, install the 2 3/8 inch header, and I'm gonna show you what a merge collector is and why it may or may not matter. This is a merge collector. Let me show you what makes this different. If you look down on this header, you can see that all the tubes come straight into it. They gather all flowing this direction, and then there's a perfectly straight pipe that comes out of them. Meanwhile, the merge collector, once again, has where all the tubes go in, but then they pinch down to a restriction that then tapers back up and out. The other thing about them is that they've got a sort of cone in the middle of all 4 of the tubes to sort of, I don't know, modify the flow as it comes out right there. You can see it deep inside there. So why would they do this? Well, considering the normal header, here's what happens. Each pipe just ends in there, and when it stops, it takes that high velocity, high pressure gas and boom, goes to a low pressure area, which tends to stall the flow. Whereas this, they all come together, it creates a high pressure area right here, the idea being that it will continue to accelerate the flow. It's almost like a venturi. Putting all the high pressure area through a restriction maintains the airspeed. Now, it's more complicated than that. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can read about it. I gotta be honest, if these are gonna work at all, it's gonna be with a lot of dyno testing. What we're gonna do is just install this off-the-shelf Dynatech unit right here. Next, we're gonna change the headers back to our 2 3/8 inch straight tubes, and then Troy is gonna hack the collectors off, and we're gonna install these. Now, the one other thing I must point out is when we do it, we're gonna end up with a shorter overall collector, and we do know that that tends to hurt bottom end torque even more, which is why I gotta be honest, this is not gonna be a super conclusive test. It's just a big curiosity. Let's get into it. Well, because we didn't kill enough power with our step header test earlier in the episode, we decided to install a merge collector. And can we have a look? Here are the final power numbers with the merge collector. It is 826.2 horsepower at 6,200 RPM and 740.6 pound-feet of torque at 5,300 RPM, which, you know what? This is actually not a bad-looking curve until you compare it to before. So you got to pull up, what would it be, C test with the 2 3/8 inch header.
With a standard collector.
Yeah. Look how pathetic that is. All right, the black lines are with our merge collector. The red lines are without. The merge collector is an incredible failure, but I won't say that's a categoric answer for all merge collectors. It's the fact that it was an off-the-shelf unit. There was nothing scientific about it, and it significantly shortened the collector length, which is probably part of the torque.
Especially
kill.
down at the very, very, very bottom of the test where they're the same, actually. So
Right
never
there.
mind.
This is what I call monkey see, monkey do math. As long as somebody else did it, then it must work, and so I better try it too.
Can you call up this test with the merge and compare it to our best header, which is the 2 1/8? Wow, is that devastatingly bad. Wow, the red lines are where we started the beginning of the show with the 2 1/8 inch header that we didn't think was going to work. And yes, we did end up finding some horsepower above 6,000 RPM by a few numbers. But here's the positive spin about how badly we've devastated this poor engine throughout the show. We have shown that you can really make big mistakes with your headers thinking that you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a lesson.
To Freiburger's point, that's what I was thinking this whole time. It's like an average guy like me who might have like a drag car or a fast street car, and you think, wow, man, the pro racers have step headers, they have merges, they have all this cool trick stuff, and you think you have to have it, and you're spending extra money, and it may not necessarily apply to your thing. Yeah,
It's not even shooting yourself in the foot, that's shooting your leg off.
Yeah, it really is. You know what, though? I think that's what the show's about. We test a lot of theories. Sometimes we bust myths. Sometimes we just do shootouts and find like what the best parts are. But the thing is, we learn something every single time, just how we have done for 8 seasons on Engine Masters.
I'm a wildfire in the city.